Welcome back to Switched to Linux. So today we're going to be looking at this question. Is it practical to replace big tech in your life with free and open source software? And the question kind of started, I pulled out a few different articles to look at random shows this week. And one of these actually comes from the 23rd, and this was Mr. Tim Apple himself. So Tim Cook says the tech needs to be regulated or it could cause great damage to society. This is an interesting take, and it's definitely one of these things that a lot of technology moves so fast and legislature moves so slow that the tech sector has kind of become a wild west and do whatever you can do because there are no laws. And here in the United States, there have to be laws on the books to be tried for abusing something. And when morality and ethics goes out the wayside, yeah, we have a problem. Now, the first time we started to see these types of debates was actually in the entertainment industry. Around the turn of the 1800s to 1900s, Thomas Jefferson had created the first video camera, and at that time, gambling on prize fights was illegal everywhere except Nevada. And so there was a very famous, it's a Fitzgerald fight. I forget who the other guy was. And I think it was in 1898. And it was done in Carson City because, of course, gambling was legal. But then it raised this question that Thomas Edison shows up with a video camera and records, like he breaks multiple different things with this film. It was the longest ever film of the time. It was the only film shot in widescreen at the time. And there was one other thing about it. But he creates the video camera, records this, and now we have a problem that we have a fight that was legal where it was, but it's possible to be ported other places. And so Maine acted first and enabled legislation that banned showing the fight. And other states got into this, and then what ended up happening is all sorts of states had independent laws about what types of films could be displayed, and it was causing this giant mess for production companies, and they decided to band together and form one group, which is now the NPAA or NAP, whatever it is, Motion Pictures Association of America, MPAA, formed out of all those groups to have one association so that the films didn't have to get approval for multiple boards. There was one national board that was created that as long as your film fell under that, it would be legal in any given state. And that's kind of what ends up happening is when some new technology arises, it kind of becomes the Wild West until legislation catches on. Now, back in that day, Maine acted fast. They acted within 3 days of the fight. Back then, you couldn't get the video from Nevada to Maine in less than 3 days. We're still talking horse and buggies, all right? So they had some time. I guess the wire got to them. They're like, oh, this is coming, man. It's coming. We got to ban it from the state. Our whole state's going to go to hell because a prize fight will be shown. I don't know. It's called slippery slope much? I don't know. But regardless, it is fascinating history, and this discussion raises these same points. And ultimately, it's down to data privacy. Of course, Apple is trying to become the chief of data privacy, which is kind of at the hilt in the middle of the fight between the iFixit, Apple, and Louis Rossmann saga, because Apple keeps on taking down posts when people are saying, no, you can actually recover data off of a device. And there's some good points out there that say, oh, well, if it's possible to do that, then Apple's not as private as they were hoping. And so this raises kind of these questions. Why are we talking about all this when our discussion is it practical to replace big tech? We are getting there. Hold tight. So what's happening here is that regardless whether we're talking about privacy or biometrics or just data collection in general, we have this present issue that the tech is out there And it is becoming so integrated that you can barely function in society without a Google account or a Facebook account. And that's a scary thing because you have to agree to terms of services to use these things. You got your kids going to school. They're either these days required to either have a Google account or a Microsoft account. And what if I come in and say, no, I don't really want my kid to have a Google or Microsoft account? What is your teaching plan otherwise? Well, I don't know. I mean, we have to. So you're forcing me to send my kids to school. You're forcing my kids to accept terms and conditions, but they don't have a choice in the matter. This doesn't make sense. So it begs this question, is it possible to replace the big tech in your life? Is it possible to replace Google? Is it possible to replace Facebook? Is it possible to replace all of these different services? And there's places where you do it yes, there's places you do it no. Of course, we're doing this on a YouTube live stream, and I do get still the random comments like, oh yeah, you're talking about all this stuff, sure, on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. Dude, shut up, all right? We have addressed this in so many places, so many ways, okay? Here's the bottom line. If you want to talk about de-Googling your life, what we're talking about is your personal life. Do you have an Android phone that you have allowed every Google service on this thing to constantly collect everything? Are you syncing all of your text messages, all of your pictures, all of your life to the cloud? Are you allowing it to track your location? Are you allowing it to do all these things? That's what we're talking about. For a business perspective, to get information out there, we need to use some of the platforms. The question is, do you use it in an appropriate way? There is no Google connection on my phone. It runs a completely custom ROM. I have all location stuff stripped out of it. I use Firefox Clar through a Tor node, which doesn't even have the ability to use the GPS. It doesn't have the ability to use the microphone. Doesn't have the ability to use the camera based on the packages they put into it. That's why it's the best browser for security and privacy on a phone. And so with that, I use all free and open source services. I do not connect any Google Play services or any of those types of things. So we're using these types of services, like I'll use Google for the purpose of doing a video. It is on a separate, isolated computer that is not in any other way connected to my life. That's the thing we're talking about. All right. But for your personal life, is it possible to do this? Even for your business life, is it possible to do this? In many instances, the answer is yes. There are things that we can do about it. Now, is it always practical? This raises the questions as we get into the practicality of it. And so for me, one of the things that I look to is I use those big services as seldomly as possible. Now, as a web developer, yes, my web development company has a Google account, because if you're a web developer and you don't have a Google account for analytics and Search Console, you're probably a little irrelevant, which is a very unfortunate thing. But what about web servers? What about your email? What about your infrastructure? What about your invoicing? These are all things that we can do it. But it all boils down to this. Why are so many people on these platforms? It actually kind of comes down to an addiction matter. We rely on it out of convenience and out of addiction. We so tie to it. We so sit there and attach ourselves and allow the simplicity of the system to overtake us. All right. Now, there's places where simplicity needs to be used. So as one good example, I use A2 hosting, which I have an affiliate link you can look at down below. I use this for my websites, my clients' websites. And there was actually a really great video you should watch on Chris Titus Tech's channel, where he's talking about, people use these expensive servers, but really you could do everything with Google Cloud. And it's a great video and it's a great service. The problem is you kind of need to be a sysadmin to use it. Okay, you're going to have to get in there and manage. Not only do you need to be a sysadmin to use it and to set up a website, you also need to be a sysadmin to manage the security and all these types of things. And that's not, you don't want to put all this stuff out there in an insecure place. You're going to end up leaking all your data like you're doing it in an S3 colander. Okay, why do all these S3 colanders from AWS keep leaking? It's not because the service is bad. It's because the people don't know what they're doing with it. And if you dive into it not knowing what you're doing and you're like, I want to get up a website, so I'm going to use the free Google service. If you don't know what SecMod is, you probably don't need to be running any type of server on a command root which doesn't have background security. So the reason we use hosts that do this is I pay the extra for the host so that I can A, get cPanel because it greatly reduces my overhead of managing the server, and B, it gives me an extra measure of security that I don't have to deal with. Now, I will absolutely encourage you to take the time to learn how to use it and use those services and watch his video and learn how to do it, but learn how to do it right by setting up the security, by getting everything set up. But your average person can't necessarily do that. And I had to stop and question, is this practical from the standpoint of this channel, which is to teach you how to get your real work done? And I say with free and open source services, it's mostly true. Of course, I use cPanel, which is not necessarily a free and open source software, but it is a good software, and there are free and open source alternatives to it, but they're not as streamlined for what I need, which is at times a client of mine needs to be able to get into their control panel as well. So I need to have something that has a lot of usability from that standpoint. And so with that being said, it's this balance between what we can reasonably do, what we can reasonably learn, and what conveniences we're willing to give up. All right. So I love this hosting company as far as setting everything up, and as far as the management is good. I've had very few problems with them. They're generally good at getting the issues and problems resolved. That's pretty cool. All right. But what are the other services that we can replace? Well, one of those that I talk about a lot is NextCloud. So NextCloud is a great way that you can replace literally the majority of your Google services, your Dropbox services. A lot of these types of features can all be replaced inside of NextCloud. I use this for co-authoring books. I have a cloud that I control, and I've just given my co-authors access to a cloud. They have their own server space. They can do their own stuff on there. And we can sync and link and share all those things. I have a space set up so my clients, as I always getting people like, oh, here's Dropbox link. And it's like, you go there to download the files. Oh, sign into your Dropbox account. And then I have to go back and tell them, you need to disable the sign up because I'm not using Dropbox. It is not a company I will do business with in any way, shape, or form. And then there's like, how do you do that? It's a setting, dude. Toggle the setting box off. I'm just like, you know what? Go to this link, upload the file. They're uploading to my NextCloud. I have a link on my NextCloud server. I can email it to the client, and the client can upload a server. They go right there. They click the button. They grab the file, and it's there. Completely replaces Dropbox in my business. Completely. All right. I, of course, can sync my calendars and my contacts. That's where my calendars and contacts sync to. For my phone and stuff. It all goes into that kind of stuff there. And it gives me full control because this isn't something that's on their servers. This is something that's on my servers, end-to-end encrypted on a server that I am the only one with the root access control to. And so it's possible. Now, is it practical that everybody's going to set up NextCloud? Probably not, unfortunately. But it is definitely something that if you need this type of service, please take the time to learn it. Watch the tutorials, experiment with it, try it with non-critical stuff first. NextCloud is actually fairly easy to manage. And I have tutorials about how to set this up on a cPanel account to make everything easy across the board. And then I'm working on tutorials right now on all of the different functions and features of NextCloud. So this is one of the services. Now, thanks to XVC, whoever you happen to be, sent me information on the FreedomBox. This is actually something I'm going to be looking at in the future. So FreedomBox Foundation created a little box that's designed to sit at home and replace a lot of your different services. All right. So what this thing is trying to do, let me go to the download page. Now, you can buy a box that already has one running, and there's a variety of different things you can get with it. But you can get with this a file sharing like Dropbox, a WhatsApp type system, which I think might be pretty cool to look into, a VPN server, a privacy-enhancing proxy server. So my guess is something like a Pi-hole, a web host like a blog or a wiki, syncing your calendars and your contacts. They're still working on email. They don't have an email server. Not that it won't work. It's just that they haven't gotten it user-friendly. This thing is supposed to be very user-friendly. So I want to grab this and start experimenting with it a little bit. It will run on the newer, higher-end Raspberry Pis and several other devices. Again, I want to see if this is something that is viable. Now, I have a slight concern about this, and this is that I don't like a lot of these services constantly available from your home network. This raises an extra issue unless you're setting that network on a separate subnet from the rest of your network. This poses some issues. And so I personally use my NextCloud and other things on an offsite server for this very reason. But when I need to, I do have a VPN with an overkill 4 kilobit encryption code to get into it. I have my own VPN, but that is only on if I'm going to be out of my office for an extended period of time. It's the only reason I use it. Otherwise, I don't like external things coming into my home network. And that's what this is designed for, is to put on your home network, to have all of these services on your home network. I'm a little concerned about that, but I want to play with it. I want to see if is it really viable. Now, most of these servers and services you can actually use on AWS. You can actually use on DigitalOcean. You could go back to A2 hosting, get one of these $5 VPS hosting accounts and do all the same stuff on this. So is it practical to replace all of these services? It's a yes and it's a no. The challenge is that we balance between expenses and expertise. Okay, if you have the expertise, your costs go down. All right, I have just organized my publishing company as an LLC, and I don't have the upfront cost of a few $1,000s for a website because I have the expertise to build a website because I've been a web developer for the last 15 years. All right, so I don't have to go through that cost. If I did not have that expertise, I'd have to be looking at forking out a lot of money for a website for that endeavor. And this is kind of the case. Now, the thing is that don't be lazy. Take the time to learn how to do these things. It is amazing that these services and these technologies do. And I'm not going to be doing a bunch of tutorials about how to get all of the, all of your root command line stuff going. Like I said, go check out Chris Titus Tech's channel. He has a great tutorial on using the Google servers not too long ago. Go check that one out. Because that has a lot of useful information about how to set all that up. I'm not sure I'd use it personally on a Google, but it's going to be the same method for AWS, for DigitalOcean, for Google, probably Azure as well. SkySilk is another new one that does the same thing. So there's these services are out there. There are a lot, but they do take some command line and some sysadmin skills to use effectively. All right. Is it possible? Yes. Is it practical? Maybe. What's the major challenge? The difference is your expertise. Take the time to learn new technologies. Set yourself a goal this year of learning new technologies. Learn to replace some of these things. I think that this FreedomBox just looks like an amazing device. Like I said, you can buy one that's already set up, or you can download it and put it on a variety of different types of devices. Consult their page for more information. It is based on Debian if you are curious. So that is my take here. Is it practical? Yes and no. It really depends on your desire to learn, maybe your ability to learn, and your desire to get off of the addiction and onto actually doing real work. That is the truth. So FreedomBox. Have a look at FreedomBox. Let me drop the link for you guys down here in the chat, and I'll go ahead and put that in the description for the video as well. So let me know what you think. Have you used FreedomBox? Have you used NextCloud? What's your experiences? What is your biggest challenge to prevent you from getting big tech out of your personal life? and what steps and what tutorials can we do to help you in that endeavor? Let us know in the comments down below. Once again, you can support the channel having a look at the links above or in the description down below, and follow along on the social media if you'd like more reliable updates as to when videos come out. So thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.